Do you want to know which players will help you win fantasy leagues? Well, stay tuned because we're about to tell you. Welcome back, Fantasy Endgame community. I'm Pierre. He's Chris. Now, a couple of weeks ago, we gave you 8 potential league winners, and we're back to give you 8 more. All right, Chris, we're going to start with the quarterback position. We're going to go each position that counts in fantasy, give you 2 potential league winners. Who do you have at quarterback?
Well, last time I talked about a running quarterback, Lamar Jackson. And I really like Lamar Jackson. I think he's going to have a huge bounce back year, assuming he plays and gets a contract done, which I think they will. And I'm going to give you another running quarterback who, if you can't get one of those early stud quarterbacks, I think will be top 5, if not better this year in fantasy. And that is Trey Lance. Talked about this a bunch with Jalen Hurts last year. Talked about it a bunch this offseason. Running quarterbacks are just such a huge advantage in fantasy football leagues, especially in 4-point touchdown leagues, which is what is the most common setting. Because if you think about it, if Trey Lance goes out there and runs for 40 yards, that's a free passing touchdown that he doesn't have to throw for, that other guys like, say, Tom Brady or Matthew Stafford, who aren't going to give you anything with their legs, they need to throw, a touchdown just to match his 40 yards. And last year, Trey Lance, in his 2 starts, if you extrapolated that over, the full season, which I know is a little, not the best, but he would have had over 900 rushing yards. That would have been more than anybody, including Jalen Hurts. That's a ton of fantasy points just from his legs. Not to mention you factor in, rushing touchdowns. And we see it with Josh Allen, right? Every year, well, not every year, but the last 2 years, he has been the QB1. It's not just because he throws for a ton of yards and a ton of touchdowns. It's because he also rushes for a ton of yards and scores rushing touchdowns. Now, Trey Lance probably won't put up the passing numbers of Josh Allen, but he'll probably put up much better rushing numbers. And if his passing numbers are just okay, he will absolutely smash in fantasy this year. And he's a guy you can get round 9, round 10. In some of your more casual leagues, he might be a guy who none of your league mates are even thinking about drafting. So if you're not taking one of those early QBs, I think you can just wait, grab Trey Lance. He will win leagues for you this year.
Yeah, a tremendous upside. He's got great weapons. Obviously, Debo there. Brandon Ayuk looking great. The rookie Danny Gray actually looked really good too. He's a speed burner. Obviously, George Kittle, one of the best tight ends. I mean, everything's in place there for sure. Now, to me, though, when I think league winner, obviously, that's a great pick. I'm the guy who I love to play the late quarterback game, and a lot of people start doing that. Like, you don't have to be one of the first to draft a quarterback in order to get a potential league winner. And so I'm looking at a guy who's outside the top 10, top 12 quarterbacks. Last time I talked about Derek Carr, I really believe this guy who has 5,000 yard potential. Let's look at a guy who I think could get close. No surprise here. I got to talk about my boy Tua. Now, look, you can, blame me for being a homer, but let's just look objectively at what is in place. Added Tyreek Hill, one of the best receivers in the game. Already has Jalen Waddle, his boy from college, who, oh, by the way, had 1,000 yards as a rookie, even with defensive-minded head coach last year, all the stuff that was going on in Miami. Mike Gesicki, a good pass-catching receiver. They added Cedric Wilson. He can play out of the slot. Added Chase Edmonds, a really good pass-catching running back. The pieces are in place, and oh yes, an offensive-minded head coach who has been hailed by some as a rising star, young guru in Mike McDaniel. So, offensively, we know this team has everything in order to take off, but what about Tua himself? Look, it's like either you love him or you hate him. People think that he's a superstar in the making or he's just going to be a bust. Why would he be a bust? Do you remember the tank for Tua thing? Remember when he was the top prospect coming out of college? What has changed? He had a hip injury. He, had to acclimate to the pros. This is the year where he could absolutely break out. Even despite having very little in the way of target, as far as quality receivers last year, he had a 68% completion percentage, only 2.2% interception rate. He's not a guy who makes big mistakes. He doesn't really have to sling it down the field 60 yards, guys. Okay, he doesn't have to do that. Just get the ball in Tyreek Hill's hands, and he will take off. Okay, so the thing is, he's being drafted as QB 16. Why not take a chance on him? And I think that even if all you get is a top 10 quarterback, he's going to help you win your league because you waited on quarterback and you boosted all your other positions. This is somebody who, honestly, to me, I wouldn't be surprised he outperforms guys like Tom Brady, who all of a sudden now his receiver room is a lot thinner than it used to be, okay? So Tua, yeah, you can call me a homer if you want. But that's okay. I'm going to be drafting him wherever I can, and I think I'll be laughing all the way to the bank at year's end. All right, Chris. What about tight ends? Not the glamorous position, but it's very important. And a lot of times these late round tight ends are these guys who are ready to break out. They can help you win a championship. So who do you think might be this year?
Well, first of all, shout out to our Discord and Patreon member Keith, who has been all over Dalton Schultz basically since the beginning of the offseason. It took me a while to come around, but I am now all in on Dalton Schultz. Everything has broken right for Dalton Schultz. I figured last year was probably a fluke year. We wouldn't see that Dalton Schultz again. But then what happened? The Cowboys traded Amari Cooper to the Browns. They brought in James Washington, who isn't really a huge target threat anyways, and now has a serious foot injury and is probably going to miss the majority of the season. Michael Gallup working his way back from ACL. We already know he's probably going to miss the entire first month. Might miss more time than that, and then who knows how long it will take him to get up to speed whenever he does return. Jalen Tolbert, like him a lot, but he's a rookie, and it's very rare that a rookie, especially one like Tolbert, who's not necessarily, NFL ready, can't miss prospect from day one, it's probably going to take him a while to get up to speed. So what does that leave us with? CeeDee Lamb, who I love, who's going to smash this year, and Dalton Schultz. Those are the best two receivers on this team at the moment. And when you're looking at league winning tight ends, like Mark Andrews last year, what do they all have in common? Not a lot of competition for targets. They have huge target shares. I think you brought up the stat, either 90 plus targets or 10 plus touchdowns. I think Dalton Schultz could hit both those numbers in this offense because we know the Cowboys, Dak Prescott, probably going to throw over 30 touchdowns. As much as I'd like him to, they can't all go to CeeDee Lamb. Somebody else is going to have to catch some touchdowns. I think Schultz could definitely reach a 10 touchdown mark, and I definitely think he could reach, the 90 reception mark. So to me, Dalton Schultz has an easy, huge path to being that breakout tight end. We see it, almost every year where some tight end who's kind of in that, middle tight end range takes that leap and becomes an elite tight end. I think it's Dalton Schultz this year.
I'm on board with that. Give my thoughts on Dalton Schultz in a short few weeks ago. He's definitely somebody who I don't mind settling for when I'm waiting on tight end. Now, my tight end breakout, besides Schultz, and I know I mentioned Goddard, I love them, kind of that middle range, but let's talk about a guy who could be a top 3 fantasy tight end because he's already done it. He didn't do it last year because he got traded midseason, but Zach Ertz, he's one of the best pass-catching tight ends in the league. Now, last season, of course, flipped from Philly to Arizona. Well, what did he do since that time, going to this air raid offense? All he did was finish as the tight end 5 in total scoring, all right? And in terms of fantasy points per game, he was the tight end 6. Okay, so this, again, having to adjust to new quarterback, new system, right, traded midseason. Now he's going to be working with Kyler Murray throughout the offseason, probably do some homework together, I don't know. And then DeAndre Hopkins, gone for 6 games. Who do you think he's going to look to first? Is it going to be Rondale Moore there, 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage? Or is it going to be Zach Ertz 10 yards down the field? Okay, Ertz is going to get peppered with targets early on, all right? Because for all the names that we hear, AJ Green, who once was a star receiver, and Rondale Moore, who people think could be a good receiver, it's Ertz who's probably going to be his primary target. And so I love the fact that I can get a guy who could be one of the best tight ends, and he's being drafted as the tight end 9. So again, if you miss that kind of middle tier there, we talk about guys like Schultz and Goddard, I'm okay waiting and getting Ertz, who could be just as productive, maybe even more productive than them early in the season. All right, let's get into a little bit more glamorous position. That is wide receiver. Look, a lot of options here, but who do you think could be that absolute league winner?
Well, I've talked about this guy so much this offseason, but I have to talk about him again because he is going to smash and people don't realize it yet, and that is Michael Pittman. I like Alec Pierce. Mo Ali Cox is okay, I guess. Paris Campbell, maybe he can stay healthy. Michael Pittman is the guy there. Michael Pittman is the alpha. He is an actual alpha wide receiver. And what did we see in the first preseason game? Matt Ryan attempted 10 passes. Michael Pittman got 3 of them. That's a 30% target share. I'm not saying he's going to have a 30% target share. If he does, he's going to absolutely break fantasy football. But he's going to have a 25+% target share. And Matt Ryan, despite what you think of Matt Ryan, because you just watch, look at stats in the box score and just see what you see on TV, Matt Ryan was still a very good quarterback last year. He was just in a terrible situation. He had no offensive line. Calvin Ridley played, 6 games, and then he was gone. Russell Gage missed most of the season with injury. Russell Gage actually put up really good numbers down the stretch. Go back and check if you don't believe me. And Kyle Pitts, as a rookie, went over 1,000 yards. Matt Ryan is still a very good quarterback who can support a very good fantasy pass catcher. And Michael Pittman is all they really have. He's going to be an absolute target monster in this offense. They're going to throw more than they did last year because they don't have to hide Carson Wentz. They're going to trust Matt Ryan more. So to me, Michael Pittman, not only is he a huge upside for receptions and yards, but he's a huge, big body, red zone receiver. He could score a massive amount of touchdowns this year too. So for me, Michael Pittman, no doubt, top 10 at worst
upside this year, and I wouldn't be shocked if he's top 5 and if we're drafting him in the first round of drafts next year.
And look, I know some of you who watch us every single week, you say, okay, we get it. Stop talking about Michael Pittman, Well, I kind of wish we did earlier because now everybody's on him. I see his ADP keep climbing, so I guess the secret is out. But look, I don't care. I think we'll still have a lot of Pittman in our leagues when everything is said and done. And I'm glad you mentioned, too, about Matt Ryan. Look, he's not the most mobile guy, but he's going to go from the Falcons to the Colts offensive line. Big upgrade. He's going to have plenty more time to actually throw the ball. All right, so let's talk about a guy who could be, I'm not going to say this year's Cooper Kupp, but look, what happens? You see these receivers like Debo and Kupp last year in that 4th, 5th round range, good, solid, known receivers, and then take that massive leap, right? Something has to happen, like a new quarterback maybe. What happened to Cooper Kupp? Well, how about Courtland Sutton? All right, Chris, I know you're going to appreciate this. You've been talking about Sutton for months now, and I think it's time that we put it back into existence that Courtland Sutton is the guy in Denver with Russell Wilson. Okay, don't need to talk about Russ's resume. You know that. So some people are on Judy early on, some people on Sutton, some people thinking Tim Patrick might be a sneaky sleeper, and we were on that too. And then Tim Patrick is out for the season. That makes it even more important that Sutton is a guy he leans on. And we've heard now we've got a little bit of training camp under our belt. He is the guy. He is Russ's favorite receiver. Judy, still kind of having his share of issues. But Sutton, he's got the physical tools. He's now got his quarterback's trust. He's going to get a huge amount of targets. We know this because really their receiving core is pretty thin now. So, getting him in that kind of 3rd, 4th round range, depending on where he's going in your draft, this could be that guy that is a league winner, wide receiver 1, top 5 maybe receiver that you got at a discount. So there's nothing really to hold him back from finally taking that step forward and breaking out. All right, and then we'll end with everyone's favorite, the running backs. Let's go ahead. Let's bring on the comments, guys. Chris, I'm going to let you go first. Who is going to be the league winner at running back?
Yeah, so before I tell you about my running back, I want to tell you a couple of quick stories regarding me and my view on running back. So back in 2018, there was a young second-year running back named Christian McCaffrey who was going kind of like middle of the 2nd round, and people were on the fence about him. Some people thought he was going to be great, and some people thought he was going to lose work to veterans like Jonathan Stewart and other running backs. And then I started watching preseason games, and I realized that every time Cam Newton was on the field, so was Christian McCaffrey. And that year, he ended up playing almost every single snap. I think he went over 90% of the snaps, and he destroyed fantasy football. Fast forward to last year, Najee Harris. I was kind of on the fence about him. For the same reasons a lot of you are on the fence about him right now. I was worried about his offensive line, worried about his quarterback, worried about his offense. Then I watched the Steelers play in the preseason, and every time Big Ben was on the field, not every time, but most of the time, so was Najee Harris. He went out there, he smashed last year, he played almost 90% of the snaps. This year, Jaguars' 2nd preseason game, Trevor Lawrence played 3 or 4 series, I think, and Travis Etienne was out there for almost 90% of the snaps. He's going to smash because he's going to be on the field all the time. And when you're on the field all the time, you get more opportunity. Don't talk to me about James Robinson coming back from Achilles. I know he's a nice story, but he's not going to be 100%. He's not going to be close to good enough. He's going to be nothing more than a change of pace guy. Snoop Connor, I like him. Rooting for the kid, but let's be real, he's not near the talent that Travis Etienne is. Travis Etienne has huge upside in this offense just based on volume. He's going to get the bulk of the carries, Plus, he's going to get a ton of receptions. If he can reach that 60, 70 reception mark, he's absolutely going to be a top 5 PPR running back this year, and he's going to help people win fantasy leagues. Don't worry about the offensive line. Don't worry about the offense. Chase the volume. Chase the guy who is on the field all the time. It's going to be Travis Etienne. He's going to be an absolute steal and a league winner.
If anybody knows what it takes, it would be you guys. If you've seen that research, those who are in Patreon, we're looking for that league winner, that breakout guy. Etienne, why couldn't he do it? I mean, it's hard for me to really fully commit to a Jaguar, but that's what it takes, right? You need a little bit of a leap of faith here. All right, so stop me if you heard this. Saquon Barkley is really good. All right, now he should be fully healthy, finally, because he's got that full year to recover. New offense, new coach, new system, but it's the same Saquon Barkley who, you remember, was a top 5 draft pick and pretty much should be the top running back in the NFL. Finally has a chance to prove it, and the only thing that maybe would hold him back is, well, they're going to keep him fresh and they're not going to use him. No, it's the opposite. He's probably going to see more touches than ever. We've heard them come out and say publicly he's going to have a huge workload. Okay, and he should, because really, they didn't do anything to prove that they're worried about him. Behind him right now is Matt Breida, who, look, love him as a player, but this guy has been on, 4 different teams in the last 3 years. A guy who has trouble staying healthy himself. Not a threat to eat into Barkley's touches. Gary Brightwell, I think. I mean, look, it's going to be all Barkley all day, and they're going to need him because, again, Daniel Jones is not exactly showing that he's a franchise quarterback. They're going to try to get through the season with him by protecting him, by dumping it off to Barkley, handing it off to Barkley, doing whatever they can to make Saquon Barkley this offense. Okay, so there should be no doubt that Barkley has the path. He clearly has the talent. I love that now he's going as the RB12. People are still worried, I guess, because of last year. We know what happened last year. He wasn't fully healthy, and the Giants weren't very good. But actually, they boosted their offensive line a little bit too, so you shouldn't even be as worried about that either. So I'm all in on Barkley, going down with the ship, but I actually feel like he's going to take me to the ship. All right, guys, so those are our more league winners. If you didn't catch the first video, you can check it out on this channel. Hit subscribe if you haven't already. We're here all draft season long to help you crush and dominate your drafts.